Greetings, everyone. This is a tech check at 7:52 p.m. Central Time, 8:52 p.m. Eastern Time. Checking for voice. Tech check. Testing. 1, 2, testing. Good evening, Miss Ernie Birdie in the chat. Queen Olive, good evening. Thank you guys for already being in there. Wow, impressive. All right, I'm going to check the camera. Testing 1, 2. Checking the video. Testing the video. Oh, let's see who. Oh, hello, Kathy, my very dear lifelong friend. Thank you for being part of the tech check. If you guys could let me know if you can hear me and see me, that would be great. Let's see here, checking the chat box. Wendy, tech check. Thanks, everyone. I'm using my sister's laptop, so just checking the lighting, checking the mic. I'm not in my home office right now.
There you go.
Thanks, everyone. I'm using my sister's laptop. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see those of you that are in our chat box tonight live with us. This is Social Change Warriors, our Thursday series, Calling Out Corruption. And I'm Catherine Felton Page, your host tonight. It's really great to be back. Some of us were together last night, Ernie and Sarah for sure, because they are my gracious moderators. And I'm sure some of us that will be joining us were with us last night for the Wednesday night series of Social Change Warriors, where we are empowering women and calling out injustice to women. And the name of our Wednesday night series might scare some men off because it's called the Angry Bitch Club. And I spoke a little bit about why I called it the Angry Bitch Club last night. So you are welcome to replay and learn all about that. And I will remind you next Wednesday why it is called the Angry Bitch Club. But tonight, this series is called Calling Out Corruption. And I am going to be very proud of this series because we are going to work together as a team. You're going to let me know when you find guests that are willing to come on to the live stream. They are allowed to be anonymous in respect that we can use a stage name. We don't have to show their face. They can come on with only their voice. So we just want to be able to, everyone deserves to have a voice, and we want to be able to call out corruption in your communities where we see it, because we don't have a choice anymore, guys. There is just too much going on in our local governments and our local police departments, case after case after case, the last 3 to 5 years. And we as a community member, and we collectively as a community, we really have to put our foot down, because the big egos that are running these corruption rings in police departments and in governments, they don't care about us. Okay. We got to realize that. We have to come to terms with that. It hurts. It hurts to come to terms with people that have sworn an oath to protect us, and people that we elected to protect us with policy and laws are not doing their jobs, that they're self-serving. And we need to honor those that are doing their jobs. We need to praise the police officers that are working diligently under the law, taking care of us, and the government officials that are elected that are doing their jobs. But we have to call out the ones that aren't. We do not have a choice anymore. We have to be a community voice, which is why our calling out corruption is hashtag raise your voice. And I'll talk a little bit at the end of tonight why our other hashtag is just us. I'm really happy tonight that we have a guest. I'm not happy for what has happened to her in her life, what has happened to her brother. I'm not happy about that, but I'm very honored that she was willing to come and talk to us and give us the honest truth of what her family suffered and what happened to her brother while he was having a mental health crisis. And this is not something that is new. This happens all the time. I could talk to you for hours about some of the cases that I was assisting on or that were my call when I was a police officer that had to do with mental health crisis. And someone who's having a mental health crisis versus someone who's committing a crime willingly and knowingly and under no mental health, you have to handle that in a totally different way. You need training for that is very different than any training you might have gotten for dealing with badasses, pardon the French, and people that willingly, like I said, commit crimes of their own free will. They have no mental health issues on board. And that's a different way you deal with it. When someone's having a mental health crisis, whether it be depression, suicidal ideations, any type of health and health concerns that most of you know about. We know about bipolar. We know about people that have schizophrenia. We know a little bit about schizoaffective disorder. And we'll kind of talk more about those as we go forward in this series, because we will come up against more cases that have to do with mental health. And we've come up with more cases that have to do with people that are suffering from mental health crisis, not being alive the next day because they were not handled properly. They were handled without care and concern, standard operating procedure, which cannot be the case for those who have mental health concerns. So we have our guest tonight who's on the platform with me. I want to introduce you to Anne Marie Grant. Welcome, Anne Marie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne Marie. You don't know how much I appreciate your willingness and your strength and courage to share your story about what happened to your family and specifically your brother. So let's pull up your logo, because I know that you started a foundation, and I'm going to have you talk about that in a few minutes after you introduce us to your brother, for in your brother's name, called Impacted Families. And I'll make sure that when I put all of her information on my webpage, I had to revamp my webpage a little bit because Social Change Warriors is 7 years old now. So my webpage was a little bit different format than it is now, with the Wednesday and the Thursday night series being live versus most of my shows were pre-recorded in the past. So I will definitely put Anne Marie's contact info for you on my website within the next few days. And I wanted to have her talk about that and get into that. But first, I want her to introduce you to her brother, Thomas Purdy. And Thomas is no longer with us because he suffered a mental health crisis on October the 8th, 2015. And Anne Marie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family? And you don't have to name cities. Obviously, we never name addresses on my show, but tell us a little bit about where you're from and about your family and about your brother, Thomas.
Sure. So we're from the Boston area of Massachusetts. Born and raised here. My brother Thomas was born and raised here. He's my big brother. He's older than me by 4 years. I have sorry, I have a dog, as you can probably hear. But
Oh, no,
so
no
we're there
worries.
four of us, four siblings. I had two brothers, my brother Thomas, my brother Daniel, and my sister Jennifer, and then there was me. I was the baby, and Thomas was the second oldest. Thomas always had a lot of hobbies and things he was into. He liked to work with his hands. He was really handy at fixing things. I noticed he would stick with a hobby for a while and then go on to the next thing. He liked to repair bicycles. At one point, he was into fishing, golfing. Um, of course, he liked to spend time with his family, as most people do. He was the father of two children, a boy and a girl. Um, he was, my big brother, but also my best friend. It was sort of almost like I was the older sibling, almost like a mothering relationship with my brother because of his mental illness.
Oh, that's
Y-
just beautiful
yeah.
that you had that wonderful close connection with him. And I'm so, so sorry that he's not with you.
Oh yes, I appreciate that. So yeah, it was more like Thomas lived with me at one point. Actually, a few years before he was killed by the police, he had stayed with me, and so we had a very close relationship. He had a very close relationship with my father. They spoke, every day. Sometimes, 3 times a day. I would say the loss to my father has been very significant, it has been to all of us. But my dad and my brother, I feel that they had a very special relationship. Also, my father, due to my brother's mental illness, my father felt like he had to protect my brother a little more because of his mental illness and the vulnerabilities that come along with it. But he was just, my brother, like everybody else. I loved him. I love him still, and there's a huge piece missing in our life because of the way that law enforcement handled a mental health crisis.
I'm so sorry. And I know I can speak for everybody in this chat and anybody that will watch on replay. And thank you to everyone that will watch on replay tomorrow. If you're watching us and you're willing to, reach out to Anne Marie via her website and see if there's any way you can help volunteer. So can you tell us about, I'll explain to the chat, and Anne Marie already knows this. I asked her not to tell me too much. I only know the just very basics of what happened to her brother in 2015. And did I get the year right?
Yep.
Yes. Because I want to have a visceral response to this with just like the rest of you. And I want to be able to feel it and react and ask her questions. And then I will be asking her back because I would like to do a little bit more of a deep dive with her on the families that she works with now and any laws that she may have been working on, because I'm willing to volunteer and write letters and whatever I have to do to help you, because I think that your foundation is beautiful and amazing. And I would like to have you back on the show whenever is convenient for you. Whatever Thursday works, we would love to see you again. So this is just the first part tonight of all of you getting to know Anne Marie and her wonderful brother. So can you share with us what happened to your brother that night?
My brother was in Reno, Nevada. He, like I mentioned, he born and raised in Massachusetts. He was there visiting. He was a guest at a local casino there. The Peppermill Casino is the name of it. Um, and he had a mental health crisis on the security floor, which consisted of he was non-violent, non-combative, unarmed. It was, he thought that somebody was trying to shoot him or kill him, and he had stopped security. He was sitting on the floor. And the only reason I know all of this, I just want to put this out there, is I didn't get any of this information actually from law enforcement. I didn't get anything near the truth of what happened to my brother from law enforcement. This is the truth of what happened to my brother, what I'm going to tell you guys. So, um, my brother was sitting in between two slot machines, and three security guards approached him. There's no audio on this video. Um, and in the video, my brother's on the ground, and you can see that he looks like he's very scared. He can physically see you can see in his eyes that he's terrified. And he kind of points because there's no audio, and you can see them turn around. And later, I would find out that he had said to them that there was someone. Don't you see him? He's behind you. And so instead of asking my brother if he was a guest or anything like that, I think what they assumed was that my brother was homeless, because there's a huge homeless population in Reno, Nevada, um, like there is in many places. And so and my brother said that to them. I don't know the entire dialogue exchange. It was probably a minute. They then they must have told my brother he had to leave, or to go outside. I don't know what they told him. He stands up. You can tell he looks around him so quickly. You can again see the fear in his eyes. And they walk him to one of the doors, and he falls down. And one of them, there were three security guards at this point, pick him up, and use his head to open the exit door with to push him out to the outside area. And then they left him there, and my brother then is sitting on a bench. And again, you can see the paranoia and the fear in his eyes. And he kind of is looking around, and then he walks through the valet area. Uh, and then he must again have, out of fear, he starts to climb under a vehicle. In the valet area, security comes out, and they grab him by his feet and drag him out from under the car and almost pull him into the lane where the vehicle was coming by. There's no, I've never actually seen footage of what happens when they then take him over to, there's a set of stairs and a water fountain. Security took my brother over there. From the reports I've read, he was sitting on the stairs and telling them again that, someone's going to kill me, please just help me. There was no threats of violence. There was no danger to anybody. He was just someone having a mental health crisis who was very scared. And security then, because they said that my brother like scooted up on his butt back up on the stairs. Um, it's not in the reports, but I watched videos afterwards of a female security guard's interview, and the security guards grabbed my brother by the feet, yanked him down the stairs, and his head bounced off the stairs. They then put him in their handcuffs and put him face down, in the hog tie position without an actual hog tie. And if anybody doesn't know what that is when your hands are both handcuffed behind your back, and then they attach your ankles I don't know if they're handcuffs, but your feet are handcuffed together, and then they use a strap to attach behind your back, your hands and your ankles together. The device they put on my brother, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead, but that's what a hog tie is. So then they call Reno Police Department, who came. That part is very grainy. You can see them walking my brother towards the cruiser. They were going to arrest my brother for trespassing at the Peppermill Casino where he was a guest. Security claims that they didn't realize my brother was a guest until the police arrived, and security took my brother's wallet out of his pocket, and they could see that he was I don't know what it was called, a gold platinum player there or something like that, and that he had a room there. So Reno police, you can't see, it's very grainy, the video, but you can see that my brother is up against the cruiser, and they kind of have him like, down his head like that. And then it looks like he kind of falls a little bit. They said that my brother, their story is that my brother kicked back once at an officer. So they took my brother to the ground in between two running police vehicles. And they put him in a hog tie with an actual device, which is called the Rip Hobble restraint. And every single page of this device manual, which I got after they killed my brother, I didn't get it from them, but through requests, public records requests and just requests, I got the Rip Hubble restraint manual, which every page of the manual says never use to hog tie a human being. The device is actually supposed to be used. You are never supposed to tether the hands behind the back, and that's what the device manual says, that it can cause positional asphyxiation. Yet that's exactly what Reno police did, is hogtied my brother with it, and they kept him there face down for approximately 15 minutes while they filled out their paperwork. They had one officer, and you can see this in the grainy video, and the reason you can see it is because my brother's face is white, and the video looks as if it's a black and white video, and you can see my brother's face down, and you can see him turning his head back and forth, but one of the officers had his knee in my brother's neck and back area while the other two officers were filling out their paperwork. I believe it was approximately like 15 minutes of that, and then they put my brother, their standard protocol when they use the hobble restraint on someone is they're supposed to call the paddy wagon. I don't know, that's not the actual term for it. I don't know if you know the other term for it, but that's actually the only term I'm familiar with.
It's prisoner transport, but that is, every police department has a nickname for it or a side name for it, but it's just literally police transport that takes the person that's being arrested to the local jail for booking, for the mugshot, the fingerprints booking, and then depending on the crime, they can bond out. Then they'll take them to the courthouse to bond out. If they can't bond out, then they get booked in for overnight. Before you go on, I want to, well, first of all, take a breath. This is a lot. Okay. That was amazing that you were able to tell us that. Your strength is just commendable. I commend you. I don't know how you got through that, telling that story. So I want to walk this back a little bit. I want to talk to you about some things that stood out to me. And then I want to ask the chat if they have any questions, and then we'll go forward. Is that okay with you?
Sounds great. Yep.
Okay. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Yes, I've shared my brother's story many times, and I understand. It sometimes it can be difficult, and but I understand that I'm sharing my brother's truth, and that
Of course,
he
you
he
are.
wants it. He would want the truth to be out, and it's my way to.
Oh, he's so proud of you.
Justice for him, yeah, and make
I
change.
know. All of us know in our hearts, those of us that are live and those that will watch on replay, we know your brother's proud of you. You should be so proud of you. And I'm sure your whole family has, by creating this foundation and everything you're doing. So I watched the Karen Read trial a lot on Emily Baker's channel, Emily D. Baker. And I know several of the people in the chat as well. And she would say, one of her she has a lot of famous lines, but I have questions. Okay. I have questions for the police. I have questions for the casino. I have questions for the security guards. I have questions for the entire state of Nevada right now, and for anybody that's in law enforcement in that state. I would really love to get someone to come on with us the next time you and I meet. I'm going to, if with your permission, I'm going to make some phone calls.
Absolutely.
My very first question is, do you have the police report?
I do.
All right. So I will need to see that, and we'll figure out how you can get that to me. I want to read that through all the way. What sounds to me that happened is a mental health crisis can come on very quickly. There has been so many different people in the media that are public figures, that we know of. I could name 7 if I wanted to take the time, but I don't want to take it away from you. Right off the top of my head, that made the media because they had a sudden mental health crisis, and they were found wandering their neighborhoods. They were found in bushes naked. They were found, I can tell you quickly, there was a mental health crisis in my 3rd year, I believe, of law enforcement. I am here right now in Madison, Wisconsin, my hometown. And I go back and forth between here and Florida. And I was driving around today, and I was down on campus, and I had a memory of that because I knew you were coming on tonight. And this person had a sudden mental health crisis. They literally took off all their clothes. They stormed into a wedding reception that was happening at the Wisconsin Club, which is down on the Madison campus, and started breaking things. So we get the call, police get the call to the scene. I didn't go to this specific call. I was on another call, but the officers that went, I of course found out about it later and knew what was going on. And this person was having a mental health crisis breakdown, and they had to restrain the person. Fortunately, at the UWPD, they do not use restraints like this. They are, I am going to look up the laws for you and see how many states have not outlawed this yet, because I will start a campaign for that in your brother's name. This should never be allowed. This procedure is completely grotesque and archaic and inhumane. And whatever is happening to someone at any given night, if they need law enforcement interaction, they need to be treated with the utmost respect at all times until they can be taken in to be arrested, find out, what are they being charged with, and then let the court system handle it from there. This is not a police officer's job to administer justice on the streets, and we know all this. Gratefully, there's only a small percentage of officers that do this, but that doesn't help those that have lost a loved one with the percentage that are doing it and that have done it. They are wrong. They should never have done it, and they should have been held to the highest standard of discipline, whether that be firing, decertification, or jail. Whatever one of those works for that situation of what happened to that person. So that's our number one problem. That device should have never been able to be used. I put up a slide while you were talking because I wanted the audience to see that in 1995, the Justice Department put out a statement that this is not legal, that you cannot use this form anymore of restraint. And how did you, I haven't even heard of that. That's how much, I don't even know what this device is. I never saw one here in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know what it is. I've heard of it because I know of the hog tie method, but I've never heard of that. So I'll get with you later and I'll get some more information on that from you so I can dig into, are any states still using it? Are any cities still using it? And I'm going to find all this out for you. The other thing that bothers me is the security guards' behavior. That was excessive force, completely uncalled for. They're not trained to make any decisions about what's happening to your brother. They should have been there watching over him. They should have called 911 so that EMS could come to administer aid to him. A lot of things should have happened. Everything that you told us right now is wrong from step one. The second he was contacted by security officers, mishandled from the very get-go, and using his head to get the door open, fired, all 3 of them fired. That is completely disrespectful. I know people that are security officers. They are good people. They do good work. They are very good to people. They follow their policy and procedure. They treat people like human beings, even if they have to eject them from somewhere, or kick them out of a stadium or a concert or a game or whatever the case may be. Security officer is not an easy job. They get made fun of a lot. They're talked down to, but they are there for a reason. They're there in places where police don't have to be until police have to be. So I respect security officers. I actually was a security officer for a while. After I retired from the University Police Department, I lived in Colorado for 2 years, and I was a security officer. And the job I did was so the police didn't have to be there and do the job until I had to call them to come. So these three idiots, sorry, but handling your brother in that careless manner when they could obviously, even just a normal person off the street could see your brother wasn't well, and you explained to me what his symptoms were and what was going on. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to tell this young man was in trouble. So where was the 911 call for the ambulance? How quickly did that come? And why were they not all fired when their boss saw the security footage of them using his head to open a door? I'm very upset by that, and that is just ridiculous. And then of course we go into the higher level complete disregard for his life with the way that they left him for 15 minutes. That hurts me. It hurts my heart for you. It hurts my heart for him. Where was I want to know who the sergeants and the lieutenants and the captains are that thought this was okay, that it's okay to have this person who's having a mental health crisis laying on the ground on his face, hogtied while they go through paperwork for 15 minutes. None of it makes any sense to me. It's brutal. I'm just heartsick for you. So whatever I can do in the next few weeks to dig up some of this for you, I will do. And we will reconvene when I'll let you know when I have all this information and you can send me the police report. Now, I'm going to just black my camera for a minute so I can go in the chat box. I want to see if anybody has any questions. Let's see here. We have, so Ernie says, being vulnerable and asking for help is the coolest thing to me. And it's true. That's absolutely true. Being vulnerable is very hard to do because most of us don't like asking for help. We want to be a tough guy. We want to help ourselves. We don't want to have to reach out and say, hey, I'm in trouble. I need help. Most of us do not want to do that. Let's see here. I want to go back and see does anybody, if you have a question, what would really help me is if you could type it in now. And I will read it off to Anne Marie about what we've currently talked about. If there aren't any questions yet, now that we've given her this little moment to breathe, and I wanted to vent because this is just so horrible what happened to her brother. It was inexcusable. It was avoidable. Anything that's inexcusable and avoidable, we should all be mad about, and we have to stop it. We have to find a way that these type of situations where individuals that are having a mental health crisis, because as I said, they can come on very quickly. And some people don't even know they have anything. They haven't been diagnosed yet. They're suffering in silence. Like you said, Ernie, they're afraid to reach out, or they don't want to reach out, or they don't have the resources or the money for healthcare. There's various reasons why many people that have mental health on board don't have any help for it. And they don't know what is wrong with them. Let's see here. I encourage, okay, I don't see anything yet question wise. So I'm going to go ahead, Anne Marie, and let's finish the story of your brother's final moments with us on this planet.
Sure. So they filled out their paperwork. They then, as I said, called, their typical protocol is to call the paddy wagon. And my understand when someone is they're not supposed to hog tie someone, but whatever. So that and it's my understanding because maybe it had more room than whatever. They put them in a regular, I think it was an SUV cruiser it was. So then they took them hog tied that way in the vehicle on the back seat. They drove to the jail, which I believe was like about a 10-minute drive from downtown Reno to the Washoe County Jail at 911 Parr Boulevard.
What county was that, Anne Marie?
Washoe County, Washoe.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. They took him to the Washoe County Jail, and then there's some video from outside that we saw afterwards, and they pull up, and apparently my brother one of his feet was out of the hog tie, so one of his legs was up and one was down. They took him out of the cruiser and put him on the ground, and they put him right next to the paddy wagon, which was also there, right at the running muffler of the paddy wagon. so that they could reapply the hog tie, even though they were literally right at the jail, about to go into the Sally port. They put my brother back into the Rip Hobble restraint in a hog-tied position. They then other officers came out with a big, it looks like a big tarp. It was a big white thing. It was a tarp. They call it a mega mover. And it's basically, you put the person in it just like to lift them up and carry them somewhere. So they put my brother in that while he was still hog-tied and carried him into the Sally port of the jail. And that's where the handheld video footage of my brother begins. And the first video I ever saw when I finally got the videos through a public records request, like nearly a year later, it was that we finally found out what happened to Thomas. The initial story they told us was that my brother just suddenly stopped breathing. He was talking crazy and he died. They never told us my brother had been hogtied. They never told us any of it. That was the story we got. Your brother was talking crazy, and we brought him up the jail, and he just suddenly stopped breathing. So they bring him into the Sally Port, still hogtied, and then a handheld video begins. You can see it immediately, the color in my brother's face. He's very pale,
Yeah.
and his lips look, almost like
Blue.
purple, bluish a color. And you can hear his labored breathing, like he's when he's talking. So they asked him, what did they say? He actually says to them, he told them multiple times, I can't breathe. I'm going to die. They then bring a nurse in, because I guess that's perhaps standard protocol. It is at this jail that a nurse comes in to clear the person to come into the jail. And I mean, it's not a true medical evaluation. There were two other men who were asphyxiated at this jail, one right before my brother and one a year after my brother. And the third man, I've seen the video of the nurse and the questions he asked that man, and it was just, do you wear contacts? Are you suicidal? And it's like the guy there's like 10 deputies on this guy. Why are you asking? So the nurse comes in to evaluate my brother. My brother tells her I can't breathe. She says, "Why can't you breathe, sir?" I don't know, maybe because he's tied up and his body's in the position like an accordion. And you can see that my brother is trying to lean. He's on his side now at this point, still hog-tied. And you can see that he's kind of his body's like squinched up like an accordion from being hog-tied, but also I think that was, collapsing his diaphragm, being
Yeah.
contorted like
Yeah.
that. And you can see several times my brother does try to straighten out, his stomach area while he's on his side. I don't know if they consider that resisting, because an officer actually says to my brother, "Hey, you gotta stop wiggling around, man. You're making me nervous." This is with six deputies around a hog-tied, mentally ill man
Oh,
who's
for
literally
God.
about to die from them. Yeah, it's so. Anyways, my brother tells the nurse, "I can't breathe. I need an ambulance." "Why do you need an ambulance?" She says. My brother says, "I had major lung surgery," which my brother had had a collapsed lung prior to this. He tells them that. She then says, what does she do? She goes to take his blood pressure, and she acts like she can't take his blood pressure. She's like, "Oh, do you think I can get his blood pressure?" And the deputy's like, "You have an arm right here. Go ahead." Obviously, that signifies my brother was no threat to anybody. I mean, my brother literally was laying there hogtied and said to them, "You guys could have been a lot better people about this. Why did you do this to me? Why didn't you just charge me with whatever crime? Why did you have to do this?" Um, it wasn't in that many words, do you know what I'm saying?
Of
Because it
course.
was, but he did say that to them. And then so the nurse, the sergeant running the show, his name was Wayne Westerland.
I'll get that from you later.
Yep, he tells the nurse, and these were his words to her, which I feel like not that I believe the nurse was going to send my brother out, but if she was, I feel like his words would have I don't think they send people out there. I think it happens a lot at jails is that they bring them in because when you send somebody out to the jail, then it costs them more money out of their budget because sometimes they're responsible for the bill at the hospital, not the insurance, because the insurance sometimes won't pay when they're in custody of the jail or whatever. So the sergeant says, as soon as you clear him to come into the jail, we're gonna bring him into a cell. So to me, that's like saying to her, if like he didn't say if you clear him, it's like a command. As soon as you clear him, we're gonna bring him in. So keep
You
in
should have
mind
been
about
cleared in a hospital protocol here in Wisconsin. And as well, I checked on this where I'm living in Florida, is anybody that shows any signs of mental health distress or physical injury cannot be even transported to the jail. If alcohol is on board for any reason, or they assume drugs, because they are trained to do this in the police academy to detect if there's drugs or alcohol on board. And if they even think there's a slight chance that if there's alcohol on board, they can usually smell it. They can tell by the behavior. They can't always tell if there's drugs on board, but if the behavior leads them to believe there might be, they have to be cleared at a hospital. They have to be taken. I took many arrests to the hospital at the University of Wisconsin where I have to wait. If you ever go to an ER here in this city, and I've been to the ER in my city in Florida because I have back and neck issues, I run into police officers all the time. So I ask them, I'm like, so are you guys, is this your protocol, standard operating procedure? It's in your manual that you have. Yeah. Oh yeah. We have to, we can't take them down to the Volusia County jail here. Same, no Dane County jail. No prisoner can be taken there until they're medically cleared. So I am going to look into what the laws are in Reno and in this county and find out for you. I have a very bad feeling that there is procedure in place for medical clearance for a mental health situation and that they ignored it. I
that's
think
my if only they had taken my brother to a hospital instead of brutalized him and lost their empathy, compassion, and
they didn't know what
kindness.
was going on with them. They didn't have the training. They're not psychiatrists. They're not.
I think they assumed that it was drug related.
And again, they can't. They're not in the business.
Even if it was, even if it was a crisis caused by drug induced, we know that we know a lot of people with mental illness use drugs to cope or
Right.
you know treat
Right.
treat their untreated
Or even
mental illness.
alcohol. Right. That's not uncommon, but it's not a police officer's job. That's not what they're trained to do. That's why if there's mental health, if there's alcohol, if there's drugs, that the hospital is trained to determine what is causing this current situation. Again, like I was saying in the beginning, there's different procedure, there's different protocol for mental health versus somebody stealing a bike or somebody who premeditated to break into someone's house or armed robbery. These are people that are cognitive. They're making decisions based on their own free will. They are handled in a whole different manner. They go straight to jail to be booked and bonded, not a person with a mental health crisis. So this is a complete travesty. And again, subscribers and those in the chat and people watching this on playback, I did not know any of this. My chat with Anne Marie was very short. I wanted to have a visceral reaction to this. I wanted to have a gut feeling. What would I have done if I was on duty that night, if I was working for that police department? What my police department here would have done was the absolute opposite of that. They wouldn't have done any of that. The few friends I've made in my Volusia County where I live now, I've made some friends with some local officers. I can guarantee you that is completely against policy there. Your brother would have been immediately transported to the ER and evaluated and probably put on a 72-hour hold because they would not have been able to quickly determine that fast what kind of a mental health breakdown your brother was having. So I'm pretty assured that he would have been put what's called a 72-hour hold. Now it's called different things in different cities. It's the Baker's Act in some cities. It's called an emergency detention here in Madison, law enforcement. It's called an ED. In Florida, it's called the Baker's Act. In every city and state have a different act that's specific to that specific state or city, that they refer to this, but it is a 72-hour hold. It's not uncommon for anyone that's having a mental health crisis. That is how your brother should have been treated. He should have been treated with dignity by the security officers, dignity by the police officers, not taken to the jail, taken immediately to the hospital where he could have and would have been evaluated by an ER doc who would have called in the psych doc, and they would have put him on a 72-hour hold, and your family would have been contacted. Yeah. That's how the story should have read, Anne Marie. Right. And I'm so incredibly sorry that your story did not read that way, and for your brother, for his loss of life. Yep. I know that everybody that's live with us right now is heartsick for you. I can see some of the chat going on, but I'm going to read that all later and I'll respond to any questions. And I think what we'll do is I'll wait for the end for any questions tonight or observations. Then we can talk about questions when we see you next time. We'll start out with you answering any questions that the live viewers have tonight. And then anybody on replay can also get a hold of me on Twitter, or and I'll put up there. They've been typing those in the chat box for me, but I'll put those up here so they can see it. And if I'd rather take all the questions, I don't really want to give out your information quite yet until you and I talk more about what that could mean for you. And I know you have a website, so and obviously if you're comfortable giving that out, we can type that in the chat box for you, for all the viewers. So
yeah, I'm comfortable giving the website out. I do want to mention that the website is co-founded with another impacted sister. Her name is Jennifer Root, and she lost her brother, Justin Root.
Yes. I've been in contact with them, actually. And well, isn't that interesting? I was actually going to ask you, there's some names that I was going to run by you later of some other victims. Yep. And I was curious if you had reached out to them. I would really think that would be really impactful if the two of you would want to come on together.
Oh, we'd love to, yeah.
I've wanted to meet her. I've actually read about her brother's case many, many months ago. And when I was off of social media for a while, I was not happy with the takeover of Twitter and into X. And I just decided I'm done with social media right now. I have a very limited Facebook that I use for my high school class reunions. I just read the paper, I read news. And then suddenly my Social Change Warrior program, I wasn't able to make as many pre-recordeds because of just time. I had a couple surgeries, and suddenly I realized I'm missing out. I need to go back on Twitter. I want to shout out for I read about Justin Root. I did not read about your brother. It did not cross my preview, but I read about Justin Root, and I was so angry and so offended for his family. And that was one of the first cases. And do you know about the Jennifer Dulos murder case, domestic violence murder case? Have you heard of that one?
Is that the family?
That's in Connecticut. She was murdered by her husband. That case and the Justin Root case were the first cases that actually brought me out of Twitter X retirement. I was so upset and mad, and I wanted to do something. I feel so helpless most of the time, like most of us do. We see these injustices happening, and we sit at home saying, what can I do? How can I help? I don't know. If you're not on social media, you really don't know how to help unless you happen to see the news story and they happen to give you the person's website or their foundation in your case. So that's what brought me out of Twitter X retirement. And I have been tweeting out about justice for her brother all over on my Twitter feed as every day, many times. And the same for Sandra Birchmore when I learned of her case, and Ellen Greenberg. I've talked about these. And at the very end of tonight, I'm just going to remind the audience about these. We shared these women's lives last night because Wednesday night is about women's empowerment and women being facing injustice and domestic violence cases. And they were part of domestic violence cases, so we shared them out. But they were kind of what brought me. Like I said, when I learned of Jennifer Dulos's death, I was enraged, and I wasn't quite ready to go back on Twitter, and I felt so helpless. So when I did get back on, I was able to do some social media and just try to get their name out there. It's not a lot. It doesn't feel like a lot.
It's a lot to the people who are affected. I can tell you that it means a lot what you're doing, giving me a voice to share my brother's story. 1 tweet, 10 tweets, seen by one, seen by a million, it still hits my heart the same way. And I know that Jen, Justin's sister too, it, she will call me like, oh my God, did you see someone tweeted Justin's name? It's important. When the mainstream media doesn't want, it's
No.
usually not, it's, these stories aren't what they it's not, doesn't fit their agenda,
Yep.
mainstream
Nope.
media. So when people like you and others step up and offer to give family members or other people impacted by whatever it is, domestic violence, police brutality, a voice, it impacts us in a big way. If it doesn't feel big to you, know from me,
Thank you.
and I know from Jen that it is. It means the world to us.
Well, I would be just honored to meet her. We chatted back a little bit on social media. She actually thanked me for adding her brother to my call outs when I started calling out like 3 months ago for justice for Sandra Birchmore, because I did not know about that case. Because of, I believe her name is Mizzy, and I can feel comfortable saying that now because that they were mentioning her today on Facebook. She's been on several of the current YouTubers that we're following. Oh, I don't like to call them that, but I guess that's what they're called now these days. But they have their live shows where they're trying to call out injustice and police corruption, as well as I am. And they've had her on their show. So she's been an angel for Sandra Birchmore. She did not ever believe that she was unlived herself. If it takes a special kind of evil to frame someone that you're killing for their own unliving. There is no great, there's a lot of evil in this world, but that's one of the top-notch evils, is to actually, you're the one who's framing this person for their own death. And this is what happened to Ellen Greenberg as well. Those two are very similar in happening. So we're going to be talking more about them next week as well. It's all involving police corruption, but some of them are also involving domestic violence. Ellen Greenberg, Jennifer Dulos, whose body has never been found, and your brother, obviously, police corruption. Justin Root, there was definitely excessive force, improper use of force, you name it. That with your, I'm sure you're well
In a
aware.
cover up too. In a
Yes,
cover up. I mean, same
yes,
players in the Reed and
corruption.
Birchmore case. It's
Yes, all of them, and then it like I said at the beginning of the top of the hour, community has to come together, and the more voices, like you were just saying, the more voices saying, hey, what is going on here? What happened? Why did this person die in your care? You were talking to them, you decided to arrest them, they are now in your care. It's your job to make sure they see justice. Rather, if they did do something wrong, then they have to go through the court system. If they didn't do anything wrong, then they get unarrested. You release them. So I would really be honored to meet her and to have you both come back together and talk about your foundation in our next visit. By then, I'm going to read the police report. I'm going to go over some things and make some notes. I'm going to make some calls and see what I can also come up with for you, some answers maybe that you haven't found yet. And I would be willing to do that for Justin as well. So we can have a separate talk off the platform about that. I'm just going to black my camera for a minute. And when you got the call that your brother was not alive, can you describe to me how that happened and how your family had to handle that?
so I was actually at work, and again, because we didn't get the truth from the police, what happened was my brother ended up, they asphyxiated my brother, and he did not, he was, so my brother was without oxygen for over 10 minutes, and they got him, his heart beating again, but he was on, a mechanical ventilator because he had, been without oxygen for so long, he was brain dead. Because none of the deputies attempted to do, or the nurse attempted to do CPR on my brother. So my brother was actually laid at Renown Hospital in Reno, Nevada, alone on life support for about a day and a half because the hospital, so the jail just left my brother at the hospital. They told the hospital, if he comes out of this, we don't want him. And they never tried to contact my family. The jail didn't make any attempt to contact my family, but the hospital did. And eventually they were able to. Nowadays, a lot of people don't have landlines, but my sister still had a landline at that time, and they were able to get in touch with my sister and tell her that my brother had been brought in by the police and was on life support. I was at work when I got the call, and it was actually my niece who called me and told me that my brother was on life support and that he had hit his head. I don't know to this day where she got that, if that was something they had also told my sister. Um, but at the time, I will say that I never would have questioned police what they were telling me, and never would have thought that maybe it wasn't true. So I've become a lot more aware that, and not just from my own brother's case, but because of the so many other families, impacted families who have lost a loved one to police. My story is not unique in the way that I was lied to, and information wasn't provided. But I found out when I was at work, and immediately that my brother was on life support, and immediately, booked a flight to go to Reno, Nevada. I flew there on the same flight with my brother Dan and my sister. My father actually, he lives in Massachusetts too, but at the time he was visiting his ex-wife and he was in Atlanta. And my father at the time was 73. So he had to fly alone from Atlanta, knowing his son was on life support, to Reno, Nevada, and my sister Jennifer flew right away. She could get on an earlier flight than I could, and met my father there in Reno, because they said my brother was at the hospital on life support. We didn't have any information when I arrived. My sister and my father, it was probably like 16 hours behind them, but at that point they still didn't have any information either, except that the police had that my brother had had an encounter with the police. And when I wasn't, before I had arrived, the police had showed up and asked to take photographs of my brother, and my father had told them. My father didn't know what happened, but my father knew something wasn't right. As a parent, I think you just have that sixth sense about you. But my father, like, told him, "Get the hell out of here. I don't know what you did to my son, but you did something to him." My brother's hands were all swollen from the handcuffs and stuff. But yeah, I was at work and flew out there, and at the time, like I said, I didn't know anything, but I didn't in a million years think that my brother had been hogtied by the police for over 40 minutes and asphyxiated to death. Um, I knew when I started to think that something wasn't right was when the officer, so in Washoe County, what they have a protocol that the city next door will investigate if there's a crime, a possible crime involving law enforcement. In reality, that's not unbiased. It's not a separate agency, because these three agencies that are in that county work together on the regional gang unit, the regional SWAT team, the regional narcotics unit. They work very closely hand in hand. So, but they had assured me, the female detective who came to the hospital assured us that they were going to find out, if anybody did anything wrong, they would be held accountable for it. But again, she just said, she told me she had watched the video. They told us that there was video of it and that we were going to be able to see it before we left um, Reno to go back home. Well, you know, the day before we were going to leave, it was, "Oh, we can't show you the video now because it's an open investigation." So we didn't know anything for like a year. So that's how I found out. I found out my brother was on life support, and the police claimed that he was talking crazy and just suddenly stopped breathing. But like I said, I didn't find out the truth till almost a year later, and that was through That we wouldn't have found out the truth if I hadn't put in public records requests and they hadn't actually released the video footage of what had happened to
Right.
Thomas.
They weren't going to just share it with you. And I'm sure there's plenty of other current, cases out there where the families are still fighting for justice for their loved ones. And you made a really good point earlier that, and I'm going to use the word sexy because media likes to use that word sometimes. My journalism degree when I was young taught me a lot about media that I don't like and that most of us don't like, is that but it's not always the media's fault either, because the consumer, that's what they want. They like to watch the cop shows now where they show live arrests and police, doing their job with cameras in their faces, which I don't understand at all, to be honest with you. Now, the body camera is a whole different story, but these live, I'm not really for these live cop shows, in case you can't tell. I don't like it. I'm not really a huge reality TV fan, with the exception of some of the more lighthearted ones. I'm definitely not a reality TV fan for watching people have constant drama and bickering and fighting and treating each other horrible and calling each other names and some of these police shows that they've had. I'm not really a fan of them, but that's just my opinion. Everybody's got their own. But if the media doesn't think it's media worthy, they're not going to tell us about it. And Sandra Birchmore wasn't media worthy for the longest time. This was someone who lost her life in what I consider a pedophile ring of police officers for years that nobody brought attention to in the first place. And then when it was brought to the attention, they ignored it. And then she died. She was murdered. And then the media just accepted suicide. Nobody, this wonderful angel that she has, Mizzy, was the only one that was fighting for her, and then recruited some other local individuals to be part of her team, and they've been having standouts and writing on social media. And then when I found out about it, I contacted her and said, I will put her name on as many of my social media posts as I can, hashtagging her justice for Sandra Birchmore, like I was doing for Justin and Free Karen Read, because I absolutely think that's a travesty. And again, that will be talked about in upcoming shows. The fact that an entire corruption is happening in 2 cities right now in Massachusetts is quite stunning. They're only like 30 minutes apart. And then Ellen Greenberg was ruled a suicide and then flipped a few days later. Lo and behold, it suddenly becomes, it was a homicide, flipped to become that she unalived herself, a suicide after stabbing herself, they said 20 times. Nobody in their right mind is going to believe that. And there was plenty of evidence that her body was moved, that one of the blows was the fatal blow, and that was not the last blow. So you're going to tell me that someone who's dead stabs himself an extra 3 or 4 times, and you're going to have a medical examiner reverse a homicide and call it that. And this is a long time out. And I think 2011, but I'm going to cover more about her story coming up the next few weeks as well. But the same thing that happened to your brother is happening to a lot of people that we don't know about, because they are not media worthy. They won't get the clicks. They won't get the minutes. The average attention span, just so you know this, and I did the research on this, the average attention span of a person on any social media feed is about 10 seconds per story. So if you have anything that you've written or that you're trying to share that's got more than 10 seconds in it, maybe even less now, I'll have to check on that and I'll let you all know next week. But it's pretty amazing, the attention span that people have now for any type of stories that are out there. It's constant click. And that's why they named it clickbait. And I want to apologize and thank you. I got to go back to that. I didn't mean to be disrespectful by using YouTubers. I was actually being somewhat sarcastic, because someone called me that a couple of days ago, and I'm like, no, I was doing pre-recorded videos for many years. I did not involve myself in live streaming until recently, because I feel like there's a need for more women to be attempting to make live streams and to try to be out there and show people what is happening, calling out corruption and calling out crime. And I decided to give it a try. I don't know that this will work for me or not. I don't know what will happen to my channel, but I'm not here for clicks. I'm not here to monetize. I am here to find justice for people and to connect with people. That you can't do that if you're not on social media. You're not going to connect with people because their stories will not make the media. And I wanted to ask you about Greenboro, North Carolina, Marcus Smith, Sterling, Colorado, Christian Wenzel, and Phoenix, Arizona, Ramon Timothy Lopez. Do any of those names sound familiar to you?
Marcus Smith, yeah.
Okay, good. Christian Wenzel and Ramon Timothy Lopez were also died in the hands of law enforcement, contacted and were hogtied. So
You know what? When this, for several years after it happened to my brother, I actually made it a point to send emails to the Rip Hobble restraint manufacturer and let them know how law enforcement agencies were using their device and it was killing people. And they were really mad at me, let me tell you. They threatened to sue me and everything else. And for emailing them saying, hey, I want to let you know that Marcus Smith was put in the Rip Hobble restraint and died. I'll share those emails with you too.
yeah,
'Cause they're
I
actually pretty
want to see
interesting to read.
those. So
Yeah.
they had the audacity to threaten to sue you
They
when
did,
they
yeah.
knew that when they knew
Yeah.
your brother died. Oh, unbelievable. Again, big egos, big business, big corporations. These are the people that are involved with the corruption. And a lot of, I'm not saying this company is corrupt, but they are the ones that you should be threatening to sue them. That the absolute audacity of them threatening to sue you when your brother died because of a piece of equipment that they made.
Right.
I'll find out. I will dig into that for you. Absolutely, for no problems.
I
So
understand their point that, it was used improperly, but how much training are you giving these officers? Even though I do believe those officers, they know you're not supposed to use it that way. It says it on every single page of the device manual. But I mean, that company could do more in-person trainings, show videos, show these stories of my brother and other people who have died from having it applied incorrectly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I want to do the research on this piece of equipment. I want to find out where it's illegal, what states it's illegal in. I put up, let me take my glasses off here because I'm one of those people at this age of my life where I have to take my glasses off to read and I need them for sitting back in my chair for distance. But this is something I found today that I wanted to share with you and ask you if you've seen this before. The Department of Justice warned against hog tying as far back as 1995 in a bulletin instructing police how to prevent deaths in custody. The paper instructed officers to move the suspect off his stomach as soon as he was handcuffed and included this directive: never tie the handcuffs to a leg or ankle restraint. So I'm going to look into that for you. I want to know more about that. I want to find out who has this particular device and if they're still using it, and find out if there's been any Congress or senators or any legislation to end this practice and find more humane ways to deal with. There are very rare occasions where this type of restraining even needs to go on. A huge majority of suspects that are arrested are cooperative. You will see this in police after report after report after report. No incident, police, cooperative, took into custody without incident. You will see that a lot because most of the time people are not going to fight with the police.
Mhm.
Most of the people that are going to fight with the police are either going to run because they know that they have a warrant out against their arrest. So they're going to run because they know they're going to jail. They're going to get in their cars and speed off. Then you're going to end up in a high speed chase if your department allows such a thing in the first place. Or if they're extremely intoxicated. Most people that are on drugs and are having any kind of mental health crisis, it depends. You should be able to see that, and then you should be calling for backup. You should have enough officers on the scene to restrain them without having to use these measures, and then take them directly to the hospital. And when someone's drinking too much, there's a lot of people that become very violent when they drink. It's a chemical reaction to alcohol. They should not be drinking because the minute they drink, they become violent. And you see this with domestic abuse cases a lot. I saw a lot of fights when I was a police officer because of alcohol. And most of the time you can just break them up and send them on their way, and you don't even have to write any tickets, much less make any arrests. But sometimes the arrests have to be made. And then when someone's really drunk, they can get cocky and they can threaten to do all numbers of things to the police. So then again, backup has to be called. You have to make decisions of the force continuum. Where are you moving up that force continuum for someone who's so so intoxicated, because you also have to maintain your safety. You want to go home at night to your family as well. There's a very fine line there. And so but the very bottom line is that you are in charge at the time as the officer. You have to use your best judgment how to handle this person. And most of these calls end up being 2 officer calls anyway. They were sent to the scene that way with 2 to 3 officers. Like you were saying, there were 6 sheriffs in there with your brother. How are they threatened? How did they knew he didn't have a weapon on him? They'd already searched him. How in the world were they threatened by a man they had hogtied on the ground? There were 6 of them, 1 of him they knew he didn't have any weapons.
I believe it was dramatics for the handheld camera. They knew they were being recorded. They didn't have body cameras at that time either. This was all, luckily, they thought, it's in the reports that because they thought my brother was acting so strange what he was saying, that they got a handheld camera to record him, but they didn't call an ambulance.
Makes zero sense. And again, I'm just incredibly sorry, but I'm incredibly grateful that you're willing to give me the chance to look into this for you, to see if I can find out more answers that you were never given. Open records law, we can do a lot with that. And I'm happy to help anyone else that's part of your beautiful foundation in your brother's name. And does anybody have any pressing questions for Anne Marie? I'm going to check in the chat box. We'll be really honored to have you back, and I'll be honored to find out answers to these questions that you have. We have Sarah says, thank you for sharing your brother's story with us, Anne Marie. It is so important. Several others in the chat. Oh, and I know I also wanted to I'm going to go back up here and I know a couple other people were giving you their condolences. Ernie had said that this was obviously a very traumatic situation for you to have to view these security cameras and see how your brother was being treated. It makes me hoarse and it breaks my heart. I wanted to thank Law Nerd Amber. I'm going to take a quick drink of water here. I wanted to thank her because I was being a little bit sarcastic because I think a lot of people are calling people that are content creators. I know I got off track there when I was trying to talk about this before. That's the slang they're using. And I don't use that slang. I usually, to me, they're a form of journalism. It's a new form of journalism. Podcasting became a new form of journalism. It's sort of like old school radio where people would, be hired to have a radio show for an hour. I'm kind of seeing the new podcasting era as being a new form of radio almost. And now video podcasting with live streaming is video podcasting. And the video podcasting I did for the past 5 years was all pre-recorded, and it was only put on my website because it was directed towards a certain audience. I was sharing it very minimally on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So now people are sharing their channels, and I think they need to come up with a new name. I'm not in love with content creator, Law Nerd. Amber, I think for me, they're actually telling true stories. For instance, Aiden, who's Dr. Turtleboy, is telling the true story of the Karen Read trial and the murder of John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer. He's been telling that true story, and he's been doing investigative journalism. So he's an investigative journalist. He's not a YouTuber. He's just choosing to share what he's doing on the YouTube platform. I don't look at some of the other gentlemen and ladies that are now starting live streams or that already had them before the Karen Read case became, again, nobody knew about it. It wasn't sexy media. Everybody was just, oh yeah, she killed him. She was drunk. She ran over him in a fit of rage. And people believed that. They didn't know any better. That was what the media reported. The media even wrongly reported that she was that there was a ring camera video of her hitting him, which was never the case and never came out in the trial. So when that became media, some of these I guess content creators said, but I think we need a new title for people that are willing to call out injustice, call out corruption, and put it on either a podcast via voice or a live stream like this, or even a pre-recorded show if you choose to do one, because maybe you have guests and you have sensitive information that you need to be able to edit if necessary. There are always reasons for a pre-recorded show. And so that's just my little take on all that. I wanted to make sure and let Leonard Amber know that I don't call them that I was basically, that's what everybody on social media is calling out. And I hope that we can change that. And I hope we can come up with a new title that best describes what people that are willing to put themselves out there and live stream and talk about true crime and current cases that are going on in our country. Because at the end of the day, most people want justice. They don't want to see the wrong person put in jail. They don't want to see the person who did it get away with it, right? We don't want that. And in your brother's case, we want to know why, what was the discipline of these officers? What was the end result? Were you ever given any answers at all, Anne Marie?
There was no discipline for any of them. One of them actually was, probably several of them at this point now that it's almost 9 years later. I know one of them got put on, Deputy Paul Hubble. He moved up the chain and he was on the regional narcotics unit, and he was actually caught on body worn camera 2 years ago, using the butt of his AR to smash the cheekbone in of a handcuffed non-combative suspect who was on the ground. I don't know if he was disciplined for that. I did file a complaint, an internal affairs complaint with Washoe County Sheriff's Office when someone shared the video on social media and I saw it. I said, well, I'm going to file a complaint just in case nobody else does.
Good for you. Good for you. That's outstanding. Well, I'm not happy that I get to look into this for you. I wish your brother was alive. I wish he was with you today. But I'm actually honored that I can use my past law enforcement experience, my journalism, and my social work. All three of them is going to come in handy in ways that I have an idea of how I can help you and want to help you and the family of Just En Route as well. So for tonight, I just want to close out with any questions that any of you have that are live with us, and any of you that will have when you watch on replay in the next coming days. You can DM me on direct message is with the Twitter. And I also have an Instagram account. You can get a hold of me on there. I will happily give those questions to Anne Marie. And then when she meets with us again in a week or two, we'll answer those for you. Happy to always answer questions. The next time that we're on with Anne Marie and maybe hopefully Just En Route's family as well, if any of you have anything that you really feel you want to share, a similar situation, one that you know of or that you've heard of or that personally happened to you, we can bring you on the platform for a few minutes. I'm happy to do that. I don't want to talk the whole time. I want Anne Marie to talk. I want to hear your questions. If you have a share, I would like you to share. I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint here that I made for us. Let me put my camera on block and see if I can bring it up. I want to end the night with a little recap of, like I said, the reason when I first created Social Change Warriors in 2019, Social Change Warriors has lived in my head for many, many, many years. I've always wanted to create a community of boots on the ground to look out for police corruption and government corruption. It's always been something that's bothered me. And I've never had the time, to be honest with you. I was working full time, raising two kids, two great sons, and volunteering as a coach and many of the other odd jobs that I've had. But always in the back of my mind was the name Social Change Warriors. And when I was finally able to make it come to fruition in 2019, my website went live in 2020. And then I was doing pre-recorded podcasts on injustice to women and domestic violence and homelessness and homeless vets, working with some other social workers that were volunteers with me. And I also made a documentary about a domestic violence victim. Her name is Levita, and that is also on my YouTube channel. The Jennifer Dulos case came to my attention, and it really struck home with me. And the fact that they've never recovered her body for her family to have a proper burial is literally heartbreaking. She was a mom, she was a wife, she had degrees and had a beautiful life ahead of her with her 6 children. She had 2 sets of twins and then her oldest child. And for her life to be just taken from her because her husband decided he didn't have any use for her anymore, and he wanted sole custody of the children after I don't recall how many years of marriage, is something that's hard to even speak of, much less wrap your head around. And you can imagine that this came out of nowhere for her. She was trying to have joint custody with him. She was trying to get along with him, having joint outings with the children. And then in the background for months and months, he's plotting her premeditated murder. And then he unlives himself and never has to pay for it and never tells a soul where she is. That one hurt me and struck me as a chord in me that really inspired me to start Social Change Warriors. And I always honor her a little bit every day, her memory. And I just am so grateful that I got the chance to know of her and the life that she had. Sandra Birchmore, I found out about her case about 4 months ago. I've been trying to be vocal on Twitter, trying to help out, keep her name in the media. I was praying that there was an FBI. I mean, we knew there was an FBI investigation behind the scenes of Karen Read, and we learned there was one also behind the scenes of Sandra Birchmore. And thankfully, one of the four, we think, well, we don't know. There could be way more than four. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I mean, this was a pedophile ring being run by police officers in Stoughton, Massachusetts. That we know. And they may not be calling it that, but that's what it is. When grown men are grooming 13 and 12-year-olds that are in a Police Explorer program where they're supposed to be looked up to and trusted by these young kids. We don't know how many victims there are. We only know of Sandra Birchmore because she was murdered and her death was ruled a suicide, which most of all the people that knew her and loved her, and including her angel, Mizzy, that's been looking out for her, knew she did not unlive herself, that she was murdered. So we're going to be talking more about her case in the upcoming weeks as well, with any updates that we get, obviously. And we're going to be standing strong for justice for Sandra Birchmore, for any of the other officers that violated her, and any other victims that will come out, because there will be more. This is tragic, and it's, to me, one of the worst police department stories I've ever heard. It hurts me that these gentlemen, we'll call them that for the sake of, I just don't want to say their names tonight yet. I don't want to give them any airtime right now. Their names are in the papers and their names are all over social media. They deserve to go to jail for the rest of their lives, and some kind of special evil of what they were doing, grooming these young girls while they were in the line of duty, and certified law enforcement. And I just want to say there are plenty of great law enforcement officers out there. I know that people are cynical now. There has just been so many wrongful deaths in the last 10 years that we have learned of. How many more took place before social media and body cameras, I can't say. But I still believe it's a small percentage. Most police officers take the oath, certified law enforcement, go to the police academy, and spend years on the job because they love serving their communities. They love protecting us, and they don't want us to be hurt or killed. This is a small percentage, but they have to be rooted out. They cannot be allowed to stay in their jobs for 13 years and groom children for sex. So we will cover this case more. We will cover the life and the justice for Sandra Birchmore. I want to just say that we will also, the family is very private, so I haven't attempted to contact them yet, but Sonia Massey was also recently shot by a law enforcement officer while she was in the midst of a mental health crisis. So this is a family that I would assume that at some point, if you're able, you will want to reach out to, because they deserve justice and they may want to be part of your foundation. She was in need of help. She'd already been at the hospital. She was having some type of a mental health crisis. I'll find out more about her story and share it with you on our channel. So my heart goes out to her family and loved ones. This was a very recent murder that happened because the police, their job was to get her into some type of protective custody and help her get back to the hospital. She called them. When you call the police, they're supposed to be there to help you. And if you are behaving in a way that suggests that you're having a mental health crisis, then call for backup. have more officers there to help restrain her and get her calm, and as calm as you can, and take her safely into custody and take her safely to the hospital where she can be, like I said, in a 72-hour hold till they can figure out what happened, what was wrong, what was going on with her. The shooting of this young woman is absolutely uncalled for, and it cannot stand. And he will go to trial for this. And in my opinion, he will be convicted. But that's my opinion. He is innocent until proven guilty. That is America, and we must honor that. But we are also allowed to have an opinion. And my opinion is she should be alive today, and she should have been taken to the hospital. This case is too much for tonight, but I will share with you, like I did last night, Ellen Rae Greenberg was murdered. It's pointing to her fiance, but again, my opinion, I don't have any evidence of that, but it's pointing that way. 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic violence. The number one cause of death for women is murder by their significant other, partner, or husband. He checks all the boxes for this. He's the one who found her body. The 911 call is suspicious as heck. His behavior doesn't scream trauma to me at all. She was stabbed 20 times. It's too much for me to even tell you. I looked at all of the autopsy photos. It's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, and vicious. So whoever stabbed her, because she did not stab herself 20 times, I'm going to tell you that with 100% certainty. And a medical examiner that the family hired told us all that in the media in the last month or two. Her parents are fighting the cases. They're suing. They're trying to get the case reopened. I believe it's gone up to the whole federal level now, but I'll have more information on Ellen as well in the upcoming weeks. We're not going to stop fighting for justice for Ellen Rae Greenberg. She did not kill herself. It was a frame. She was framed for her own death, which is an extra, like I said, extra level of evil. I want to end the night tonight, as I will always. And if any of you ever want to share an end of watch with me, with a friend, a colleague, someone you know of, or someone that you might have just seen in the media that I didn't see, we'll always end with an end of watch every Thursday night. And I want to thank Officer Taylor Bristow for his service. He was working on a task force on crimes against children for internet stalking. This particular person was trying to have sex with, I believe it was a 13-year-old, and he went to arrest this person, and they obviously did not want to be arrested, and he was killed in the line of duty. So I want to honor him for the good work he did. This is a good cop. This is how police officers are supposed to behave. He was on a call. He was doing his job. He was going to arrest someone that was going to molest and potentially rape a young girl, and lost his life doing that. So we'll take a moment of silence for the end of watch for Taylor Bristow, August 23rd, 2024. I would like to thank all of you who are live tonight with me. Those of you that'll watch on replay, thank you so much for caring about the justice and for ending corruption. Thank you to Anne Marie Grant. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your brother's story. And I'm thrilled to be able to work with you, because we can do more work together than we can separate in a lot of cases in this whole world. When we team up together and we work as a community, we can end all of this corruption, at least some of it. We'll never end all of it. Corruption's been around since the dawn of time, and it's going to stay around. But we can be loud. We can shout from the rooftops when there is corruption. And today, I was thinking about, there's other cases I've learned about, and I don't know how we're going to cover them all, because it's mind-boggling and it's heart-wrenching. But we can only do it one at a time. And when we find it, we'll call it out, and we'll bring it on screen. We'll bring it live, and we will do our best, won't we, Anne Marie? We'll do our best.
Sure will.
To bring justice to your brother and to the other victims that we have talked about and their families. So I want to tell you that my hashtag is Raise Your Voice. please use that if you wouldn't mind whenever you're on social media and you're talking about corruption or police or any of the cases that you're following. My other hashtag is Just Us, and that is in honor of my mom, who worked for the Department of Justice here in Wisconsin her entire career of 30 plus years, worked tirelessly to put away criminals. And whenever I would ask her questions when I was just a little kid, and her and I talk about this a lot to this day, I was a why kid, always asking questions. Why this? Why that? Why wasn't there justice for this person? How do we get justice for this? How do we stop bullying? I went to the principal when I was in the 3rd grade because there were several kids with disabilities in my class that were being bullied, and I was sick of it. And I was just a kid. I was 7. I'm worrying about this because I was an empath apparently since the age of 5, I guess, according to my mother. But here I am in the principal's office asking why these children are being bullied every day and why the teachers aren't doing anything about it. They're being bullied in front of the teachers on a daily basis. This was a long time ago, guys. This was I would have been 7 in 1970, but I remember it clearly. I remember standing in the principal's office and I was told, kids will be kids, Kathy. And you can't, they're just kids that, they'll outgrow it. And in the meantime, these children that had disabilities that were in my school in the wing at the time, that I don't even know, I'm sure they called it something very inappropriate that wouldn't fly today. But one of the gentlemen one of the kids had a colostomy bag at such a young age, and he was teased relentlessly. And I was teased relentlessly just for being redhead and freckles. But the kids we had a girl named Judy, and she was legally blind. Another girl was legally deaf, and they were lovely people. They were wonderful children, and they had to hold up to this constant bullying. I never understood that. And I would go home at night, and my mom said I would cry, and I would ask, why is this happening? Where is this? There's no justice at all. And then as I got older, Mom started saying, there is just us. There's not always going to be justice. We won't get justice how we see it all the time. It might come in a different form. It might look a different way. But if there's just us and we continue to work on it and continue to call it out and hold people accountable, and if we can be part of someone getting fired or jailed who hurt or killed someone or bullied someone or who got someone fired from their job when they shouldn't have been, and we can call that out, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we want to be part of that in any kind of volunteer capacity that we can squeeze into our busy lives? We should want to. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you again to Anne Marie Grant and her family and her brother. Justice for your brother is coming.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good night, everyone. And we'll be back next Wednesday with the Angry Bitch Club. We have a lot more to talk about. There's too many topics. I'll probably be doing this till I'm 90, Anne Marie. And then we will book you as soon as possible for your next show with us. It can be next Thursday. I don't have a guest lined up yet, so it can be if you want it to be. Otherwise, we can push it out. So you and I will chat. I'll let everyone know in my tweets, and I'll make a comment on YouTube when you'll be back. So everyone, have a really good night, and keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open and let me know what you see. And it's just us. Take care, everyone. Good night. And thank you to my amazing mods, Sarah and Ernie, in the chat. I really appreciate you girls so much. Thank you so much.